With this, we would like to kickstart the first panel discussion in the pink sector, discussion on the formalizing of Indian meat value chain, challenges and the opportunities. Without further delay, I would like to invite the moderator, Mr. Deepanshu, founder of Zappfresh, one of the India's leading online brand offering high quality fresh meat which actually directly comes from the farmers and ready to cook barbecue to the new age customers. I would like to welcome the panelists for today's discussion. Deepanshu, why don't you please? I would like to invite the panelists. The first panelist, Mr. Narendra Garu, CEO of Nandus. Narendra Garu calls himself as a chief farmer. It's one of the best words, chief farmers, and the CEO of Nandus Chicken. His responsibility with the company are varied and include finance, accounting, marketing, and customer satisfaction. He has also held several honorary and advisory roles in the industry. Now I would like to invite Mr. Varun Reddy, CEO Sneha Farms Private Limited. Mr. Varun joined Sneha Farms as director in 2012, has handled various divisions in the company over the years. He has experience in feed manufacturing, commercial feed sales, chicken retailing, poultry processing, and FMCG products. He also leads the business strategic committee and advisory board. He has also taken various courses like International Grain Program from the University of Kansas and Nutrition Program and Feed Research in Netherlands. Thank you for joining us here. We would like to invite Mr. V.R. Krishna Prasad Garu. I think he will be joining us in a couple of minutes. Okay, I would like to invite Joe Martin Xavier, Head India Operations for Marel India. He currently associated with Marel India Private Limited, appointed to whole-time director. He has vast experience in food processing industry. His company manufactures and provides equipment, systems, software and services to the poultry, meat and fish processing industries in India and South India. So we welcome all the distinguished guests and over to Deepanshu for the discussion.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, for joining us. We have, some of the best of the entrepreneurs in the panel today. I'd like to introduce myself, and then we'll start the session. We are a brand called Zappfresh. We're based in NCR, and we are the first D2C, one of the first D2C brands. And we have taken an oath to formalize the sector since almost 8 years now, and we are now continuing our efforts to move into different directions and geographies. And today we are going to talk about how we are looking at formalizing the overall ecosystem, mainly from the value chain perspective. And we've seen actually massive growth in the last few years, where the total annual demand has increased to almost 9 million tons, and about 7.5 tons was there it's there in 2019. So the growth is phenomenal on the consumption side, and where we want to really see a lot of action is on the supply chain, value chain side, how we can better the ecosystem. And the formalization can really help reduce wastage, boost entrepreneurship, and also look at impact with economic growth contributions. So I'm going to start my first question to Naren. And Naren, you are basically, have been re-engineering farming, focused on various initiatives, on the primary farming side of the business. So we'd like to know what is your take on feed programs, and what are some of the challenges which you face dealing with, farmers when you procure livestock, and how you have been able to solve those challenges. So over to you.
Thank you, Deepanshu. Thanks for having me on the panel. We are actually a poultry breeding company. We are about 60 years old, with breeding farms across South India and Maharashtra. And the way we operate, we own and operate the entire supply chain. So typically in poultry, the supply chain consists of feed milling, breeding, hatcheries, broiler farming, and the broilers that come out of the farms are typically sold off to the traders. So that's been the traditional way that a poultry company typically operates. Of late, a lot of the poultry companies have stepped into the, direct-to-consumer activities, and that's our initiative through Nandus, right? In regards to working with the farmers, we have been working with farmers who are engaged with us through a contract growing model. So how the contract farming in poultry works is, the farmer brings the infrastructure and labor to the equation, and we provide him with the chicken, the day-old chicks, and the feed, and every other technical services, the veterinary services, the farmer services, the technology platform to manage his farm. Everything is provided by us, and thereof, we, the flocks that are growing in his farm is ours. Okay, in that sense. So we don't procure anything, rather we pay him what we call as a contract farming charges, right? So since we operate the entire supply chain, it is very critical for us to have good quality feed as well as good quality chick that go into making the best quality broilers. So on one side, we are working with farmers to grow the feed, grow the chicken. On another side, we are working with farmers and procuring directly from the farmers thousands of tons of maize, right? So we have these feed plants. We have 3 feed plants in 3 different states, and we directly procure from the farmer, cutting out the middleman. So the farmer actually makes a lot more money, and his income is predictable, and he gets paid instantly. The minute he brings in the corn into our facility, it's tested for quality, inverted, and payments are made. So in that sense, the farmer is secure about having a source that can actually yield him a little more than the traditional supply chain, right? And on the other side, the farmer who's growing the chicken for us has a predictable income. So we work with several hundred farmers in Karnataka as well as in Maharashtra, where these farmers are assured of yearly incomes. So in that sense, that's the way we operate with the ecosystem. We ensure that their economic viability happens, and they see sustained incomes at regular intervals.
Thank you. I would also like to have a follow-up question, Narendra, on the primary processing bit, and also if you can maybe throw some light on the challenges which you've faced dealing with the unorganized sector, because that's where largely the pain point is, and how do you really build efficiency on top of that is something which makes it more important.
So a quick question to the audience: how many of you all are from the poultry business? Anybody from the poultry business? Okay. So you all know the pain, right? Like, all of the poultry companies are producing great quality chicken, but we never get paid. We're like a bunch of tomato farmers, right? We are season upon season, periodically we are investing in, the breeding flocks and the broiler farming, but we are left to the vagaries of the market when it comes to the realizations. Yep. Exactly. So the farmer who's growing corn is supported by MSP, and the trader who's getting the chicken from us is supported by the companies overproducing and underselling. Okay? I think we are the only industry that actually sells below cost of production. When I speak about this to in producing a kg of chicken, and then you sell it at $70. I mean, are you serious? So that was sort of like the defining point for for me. I never could understand why we were selling below cost of production. Why would anybody do that, right? Until unless I have a distress sale, I have excess stock, I'm liquidating something. This typically happens in a garment business or other businesses, right? But for us, I never understood why we should be selling lower than cost of production. And it took me many years to come to terms with this whole concept. Then I stopped fighting that battle. Okay? You can get the industry organized. It's a battle that you cannot win because the market is extremely fragmented, right? There are several hundred breeding companies across India. There are millions of farmers who are producing chicken. It is so fragmented that everybody has got some pressure to sell at whatever the price they get. So, after a few years, I'm a software engineer. I was away in the US. When I came back and joined the family business, I just could not comprehend this. So I said, instead of fighting this battle, why don't I take my produce directly to the end consumer? That was the only reason we started Nandus. We started because we wanted as farmers to get better pricing. Okay? And, when we started Nandus in 2017, I think we were selling maybe about 100 kgs of chicken the first month. So this month we will sell 500,000 kgs, okay, per month. It has taken us 6-7 years, but the consumer is ready. We just have to go out there and have a value proposition to them, and this happens, right? So that's the only reason. As a farmer, I wanted better pricing for my produce. That was the only reason why we started Nandus, right? And it's working out.
Okay, moving to Varun. So I think Sneha as a group has been upgrading in last few years and looking at different technology adoptions in the whole value system, right, from processing to distribution. What has been your strategy to tackle and improve efficiencies in your business?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Deepanshu. So to give you a context, I'll explain what Sneha Farms does first. Most of the activities that Narendra just said, that's what we do. And I'm not a guy who came back from the US. So I was in the business right from a young age. And even before I finished my studies, I know how the chicken industry works. So I'm much more aligned with that setup. So I didn't work too much towards the D2C side of it. But if you see the core poultry business, it's been evolving over the last few decades. It was a backyard farming that was more dominant in the 80s. But eventually, now if you see, it is more, at least on the production side of it, you have a lot of organized players coming in. The smaller farmers are moving away from own farming into contract growing. And that trend has been there throughout the world, and it is happening in India also. Over the next 10 years, consolidation of the industry will happen. When this happens, what will make you stand out? That's the main part. And whatever technology we were using 20 years ago is absolute now. We can't use the same thing. We have to upgrade our systems right from the feed mills. Once upon a time, we used to give mash feed to our chicken. Today, we have highly sophisticated pellet mills where we track moisture content in each pellet. So we have to go into that depth so that we make sure that the chicken eats less and puts on more weight. If you see outside, a lot of people talk about steroids and all those things. That's not true. The only thing is the technological advancements that happened over the last 2-3 decades have helped us improve our efficiencies. The chicken is eating less, putting on more weight. So that's how the whole chicken is growing quickly. At Sneha Farms, what we are doing is at all levels, we have replaced or bought in new technologies. At the feed mills, we've got the best of technologies. All our feed mills are equipped with Buller, which is from Switzerland. And then we have EC farms, where the temperature is controlled. And then if you see processing, we are working with Marel and Mine, which are world-renowned for their technology. Today we run a 12,000 birds per hour processing plant, which is the highest capacity in India. And we process almost 1 lakh birds a day. So now the next step for us is to get into value addition. So now we've set up, we are about to commercialize one of the largest value addition plant, where we will be producing breaded products and sausages and salamis and chicken tikkas and such kinds. So if from a business where you'll have a margin of 8 to 10%, we can move to 20-25% margin.
So has technology helped you, really bring some efficiency in the processing bit? And I understand from the farming bit, there are on the breeding side and the feed side, there are quite a few automations and infrastructure which is there. But what about processing, slaughtering? Is there anything which you guys are planning, thinking, or doing?
So if you see our plant right now, it's completely automized. The only people that are working there are for supervision. The full line is automatic. The only hanging is manual. After that, the whole process, even the cut-ups are automatic. So we are running a line at a speed of 12,000 birds per hour, which cannot be done by humans. At that pace, you need at least 3,000-4,000 people working in the plant. Right now, we have about 600 to 800 people working in the plant with so much automation in place. And definitely, we have been bringing in a lot of technology, even on the packaging side of it, just to bring down our dependency on labor and to make sure that we can run at a more optimized pace.
So, Joe, just to take it from and then expand this processing and technology piece. Your organization actually has various initiatives and projects and products which is boosting automation and technology. What do you think is some of the top 3 global practices which are very, very useful, and in India, which ideally should be taken up, and maybe what you are doing in that regard, or the industry is moving? What's your view on that?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. So I work with a company called Marel. Marel is one of the largest manufacturers of solutions and equipment for processing poultry, red meat, and fish. So by processing, what I mean is it can be primary processing, which is your slaughter, a lot like whatever Varun said. So it's a slaughter line, the cut-up lines, the further processing lines, again, the ready-to-eat, ready-to-cook products. So we do the entire spectrum. Now, processing and automation can mean different things to different people. So in most of the, let's say, more developed markets, the demand has been for more higher line speeds. So when Varun said 12,000 birds per hour, he is very unique in India in terms of that capacity. Here people are talking about moving from a manual setup to an automated setup. And again, the definition of automated could be just having it move on a shackle, right? So automation can be something that is, so it's very customer dependent. How much does somebody want automation, right? And we can choose the level of automation. Globally, the demand is more for, so one, less dependence on labor. So you see a lot of factories producing, so one step before that, now we have even upped it to 15,000 birds per hour. That's the fastest line anywhere in the world. So a lot of our R&D goes into what our markets want, what our customers ask us for. So the top 2-3 things is sustainability. So everybody wants to use less water, less energy. So we put a lot of focus on that. And I think India is no different. The leading companies will need to look at that as a core business moving forward. Second thing is, there overseas, it's all about higher line speeds. We want to produce more out of each plant. India is a little away from that. But having said that, 10 years back when we set up the office, the typical enquiries would be for, let's say, 1,000, 2,000 birds per hour. Today, people are asking for 4 and 6. So that is already a large, big development. People are asking for high level of traceability. They're asking for food safety is a huge thing, even in India. People are, especially companies like you, the e-commerce companies have come and asked their suppliers for a more safe food, and that is something companies like us can provide.
Which you guys are following, which could help?
Poultry, the business of poultry is actually extremely mature. We are the third largest producer of meat in the world, right? Without any government intervention per se. So this industry is actually extremely innovative. They've innovated, they're so efficient. Varun was talking about the birds wanting to put on higher body weights while consuming less feed, because 78% of the cost of chicken today is feed. So if you get the feed conversions right, then you've got your mathematics right. So biosecurity, the systems at the farm, these are so core to this industry. They've invented the heck out of it. Just like when we thought Apple 12 was a great phone, I think 14 or 16 is on the way. I don't know what else they're going to do. So similarly, this industry has done some phenomenal stuff in terms of biosecurity, the farming methods, the nutrition, that goes into this, the producing of poultry. In fact, I think when we work with farmers, it starts with selecting the right farmer with the right intent, right? Because our investment, we are making an investment in that farmer's farm, okay? There's lakhs of rupees of stock in terms of chicks and feed on his facility, okay? So integrity should be very high. Commitment to growing those birds, following the company's laid out SOPs is very important. The tech platform that will enable him to actually give you feedback should be in place. So we are partners with AWS. Our solutions completely hosted on the cloud, and all of our farmers are made available a mobile app where he captures the daily health of the bird. That gets up into the cloud. So in a real time, we are able to track. So biosecurity, farmer selection, the tech platform in place, all of this is made this, not just us at Nanda Group or Nandus. Almost any respectable poultry company today operates this way. And that's how this industry has actually become so large with no external aid at all, right? So it's key, these things, to fall in place for any poultry company to succeed.
Varun, what about logistics and inefficiencies on logistics? I think that's very critical as well. What I see is that on the transportation as well, there is a lot of mortality where the birds die, and then that leads to a high cost. So is there any innovation which you guys have been able to build in that side of the business?
So earlier, in the earlier days, chicken used to be transported on a scooter. So there used to be 20 on one side and 20 on the other. And eventually we moved to autos, and then now we are in large trucks. So right now at Sneha Group, we operate almost 250 trucks on a daily basis where we supply live birds from the farm to retail outlets. So we've done a lot of innovations on that side with the type of cages to transport these birds. But not only in transporting live birds, but there's a lot of innovation in the cold chain system to bring the processed meat into the stores. So we also are working with a lot of cold chain companies. For frozen, we do pan India, so we work with other companies. But for chilled chicken, which is at +4, we operate our own fleet. So there's continuous innovation in tracking the temperatures, the number of times the doors are being opened, all that is being monitored from the head office. This is to make sure that the quality of chicken does not deteriorate, because we are sure that the quality of chicken when it exits our plant is superior. But after that, the control over the product is going down because there are a lot of people in the middle. So there we try to not let someone else in. We try to manage it ourselves. And sometimes problems are inevitable. There will be breakdowns and all those. But how to minimize those is the question. And that's where technology is coming in. Now all our fleet is monitored. There are data loggers. So everything is being monitored on a daily basis whenever the truck is loaded. Even the temperature before the loading is done is also important. So we have to get into that depth to ensure that the whole chain is stable.
Suguna Foods. He works with Suguna Foods and he leads processed food division and holds key responsibilities in driving the food processing division through conceptualizing business strategies and achieving desired business growth. Welcome. Yeah.
I think your group is one of the top 10. How you are working on, your backyard as the farmer integration part in terms of support for small scale farmers. Is there, a certain community-led programs which you guys do on some level which boost efficiency on the farm level or at the processing level, which helps you make commercial business sense and also for the farmer to make more returns on their investment?
Yes, Deepanshu. We have a lot of community level programs for the farmers that have been conducted. We go as low as 2,000 birds farm also. We sign up with him as a contract farmer. So as we speak, Suguna has got more than 50,000 plus contract farming across the country. So there is a lot of incentives are being provided for each and every farmer on various levels. For example, achieving certain FCR, there is a huge incentive provided for the farmers. Achieving certain lesser mortality rate at the farm level, there is an incentive provided. So every area farmers have been encouraged and supported, both in terms of technology, what is being available in the industry today. Suguna supports them with the technology and also providing incentives to them in order to push themselves to achieve better results.
Coming back to you, Joe, what do you think is some imminent opportunities in the next 3 years, maybe for the country, where we can learn or adopt certain pieces of innovation in the processing bit for the SMEs or small businesses or mid-sized businesses, or even for the larger businesses? What do you think is should be the focus of the industry on the processing bit?
From a food safety angle, automation makes sense, but now automation, my personal take on automation is what works for one doesn't work for another person. So it's not just about replacing labor. Now I can understand the larger companies would want to reduce. It makes all the sense. But for somebody starting their first plant at a lower line speed, automation is something that can be done in a phased manner. Right? So I personally would think today there are many integrators who are seriously considering getting into the processing space. Certain level of automation, so a lot of people have a mind block against automating, which I think is wrong. There are a phased way of automation which makes absolute sense, and I think that is something they should do. In the past, even when I started my career, there were a lot of shortcuts available, which still is available. But today there is enough technology. So one of the earlier questions you addressed him about birds being transported. So today there is technology, there are ways where, along with food safety, animal welfare is a huge thing. So a nice way to say it, the happier the animal is, the better is your meat quality. So right from picking it up from the farm and transporting over 50 kilometers and prepping them for slaughter, yes, but if that process is smooth, you can see it even on the line that there is less damage on the bones, on the meat. So if these things at the back end are taken care of, the net end quality of the product is very high. like I said, we are so used to taking shortcuts, which I hope will reduce moving forward, because today there is technology for it.
Krishna, specifically on efficiency when it comes to primary processing, what are some of the key technologies which you guys are adopting where wastages and certain other mortality rates, can be combated?
At a processing level, yes, we follow the industry norms, which we try and pick up the birds from less than 50 kilometers radius, so that the bird is less stressed out there. And for de-stressing, we have a special zone created in our factories, so where we keep the bird for at least about half an hour to 45 minutes, not more than that. And to handle the climatical conditions, we have fogging machines in those sheds installed, so that the temperature of the bird is kept in, on a desired level. And we give that bird at least about 15 minutes time after we bring it to the hanging session. So after that, we normally process through the stunning process. And every step we follow, right from what is the bird temperature while loading, what is it in a stunner temperature, what is it in defeathering machine temperature, what is it when it gets out of the screw chiller temperature. So everywhere the bird temperature, and it's monitored clearly, and we achieve that. So that's from a primary level prospect. So to put a number to it, I think in the last 2 years we have improved our primary yield from around 75 to currently we are clocking around 76.8%.
So it's an open question, anybody you can answer. From a point of view of impact, when we look at social impact, improving income levels for farmers, bringing new ways to bring inefficiencies out of the system. What do you think is something which India as a market is ready for, and what we should be looking at going forward? Because I personally have seen that the upliftment of the farmers is one area where government is trying to do many things, as we have heard, the ministers. So is there something on a private level where we all can contribute and do some collaborations or partnerships in the sector?
I'll take this question, Deepanshu, if you don't. See, I was just thinking while the speech was going on. India had achieved in the last 3 decades a tremendous amount of results in terms of food safety or food production. So it is the time for India to speak about nutrition safety, not just food safety. In that, as Mr. Ramesh was clearly mentioning, that the sectors which were not getting the SOPs majorly from the government are growing faster than the sectors which are actually getting SOPs from the sector. So in future, yes, poultry farmers or the animal husbandry farmers have to be supported in group, either by the government policies or within the fraternity group that we can. One thing which comes to me is the insurance for livestock. Second thing, transit insurance for the livestock. So these are the certain things and yield-based incentives for the farmers or for the production units. So
is there insurance for livestock as of today?
As of now, no.
No. Yeah. Okay.
So we need actually state government supports on creating certain platforms which insurance companies come and provide at an affordable premium level the insurance for the livestock. Because these are as volatile as the other crops, according to me. So, but yes, a lot of state governments today are providing insurance for the crop yield to a certain extent, but it is zero in livestock. So this is one thing what we need to, other than, providing them the technology at cheaper cost, providing them the incentives on the infrastructure requirements, power, etc. Other than this.
Yeah, just to add to that question, see, what's the social angle? How is this industry made a social impact on society is, I guess, what your question was. I think, when I look at poultry, right, going back 50, 60 years ago, I think we started in the late 60s, okay? Backyard, few people were growing a couple of hundred birds. At one time, I think in Karnataka, my father was the biggest poultry farmer with 500 organized chicken. So this industry, when I see the way it has progressed, I think it's one industry that has actually become like a $50 billion business today in India, right? Contributing almost to 1% of the India's GDP and employing millions of farmers. Now, how it happened, when the whole concept of integration farming came in, a lot of the farmers said, I'm growing vegetables or rice or whatever else I'm doing, so I have some land left. So let me just make a nice shed for the chicken, and I'll buy chicks from this company and I'll grow that. And that's a residual income for me. So what began as a residual income generating activity, today, in this decade and the past decade, if you see, it become the primary source of income, right? And from independent farmers, a lot of the farmers are converted into contract farmers. Okay? When you become a contract farmer, you're not exposed to the vagaries of the market. Okay? The companies, whether it's Sneha, Nanda Group or Suguna, we take the responsibility of the risk of, the price, the volatility. So the farmer, in that sense, is if he ensures that he keeps his farm clean, he'll get about 6 batches in a year. He'll make predictable incomes. Now he has stopped growing vegetables. Okay? Most of those farmers are now poultry farmers more than just being farmers. Is that right?
Absolutely right.
So I think in our experience, that's the social impact this industry has made to India. We employ, empower, educate and guarantee sustained incomes to millions of farmers. Okay? And this is all done purely through entrepreneurship. That's it. The entire poultry business is all about entrepreneurs, right? And the impact is just incredibly massive. That's my
So are you saying that your contract farmers make more returns as compared to the non-contracted ones?
It's guaranteed returns, not just more.
Yeah,
it is guaranteed. But the risk is on the company, not on the farmer in contract farming.
So just to kind of elaborate on that point, now let me put it this way. The last couple of months, the entire industry has been selling below cost of production, right? During that time, the farmer is getting paid whatever the contracted rate was for his efforts. Okay, in a contract farming model, the farmer gets paid per kg of harvested meat, right? So he is not exposed to the cost of production at all. So if the cost of production 95 or 100 and the market price is 60 or 70, he doesn't care. He's just getting paid. That's it. So he just has to ensure the farm is clean and well maintained. He gets about 5 to 6 batches a year, and it's guaranteed income. All of the risk between the cost of production and the sales price, market price, is to the headache of the companies, right? So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Varun, you want to add something?
No, you've covered it, but like he said, now to bring in impact in the rural areas, there are very few industries that can do it. And poultry is one of the biggest industry and one of the most organized industry that can create impact on this rural segment. And there's still a lot of population and the opportunities are less. To bring down the volatility, see, it's not like any company is doing them favors. Earlier, all of them were farming on their own. Because of these price fluctuations, every year at least 5 to 10% of them have been moving into the contract growing model. Even us, because of the economies of scale, we are able to procure raw material at a cheaper price compared to indigenous farmer. So that's where we will also be able to be more efficient compared to these smaller guys. So even it happened all over the world. It's not that it's happening in India or we're doing something special. We are still behind the world, but we are getting there. But definitely in the future, the contract farms sizes are going to get bigger, because the farmer is definitely seeing consistent money. So now, for example, he's at least getting about 8 to 10 rupees per kilo on an average for 5 batches in a year. So that's consistent money and good money. And he's being spending about 3 to 4 rupees on that batch per kilo. So he's saving almost 4 rupees per kilo minimum. And that's good money for a rural guy. And that's why earlier when we used to go to a village, you used to see 1 or 2 farms. Now even if you go to Telangana, you just drive around, any village will have at least 20 to 30 small farms with an average size of 5,000 birds. So that's the development that happened. And in the future, it's going to become much more bigger, and that's the way forward. There's no other option, because for us to put in that capital, it will take time. But if there are thousands of farmers putting in that capital, because the piece of land is their own, they're not purchasing it now. So that's where it's like a win-win situation for both the companies and the farmers.
And just to add, the last point on this question is, what we can do together as leading poultry business manufacturers in India is, the price is absolutely volatile and beyond the control of any manufacturer. It could be Sneha or Nandus or Suguna. It's beyond the influence of us. So if we can develop a mechanism, get together and develop a mechanism where we either influence the demand or influence the supply. Do either of these things or both to ultimately influence the price. I think that will be a better idea, because it's a win-win condition. Farmer is not losing now, but organizations are losing, as explained by last 2 months we have been selling less than the manufacturing price. So if we can develop an internal mechanism so that either it's a price elasticity demand, so either you control the demand or you control the price, so that we get stable returns on this. That is one request.
That's where I think efficiency is core to the whole project, specifically in the processing bit, because I think the purchasing power of the customer is at X level, and what all we are all looking at, investments, it is probably higher or at par, is a function of how the propensity to buy is improving and growing. So Joe, specifically, I would like to ask you here is that the market largely still is very, very unorganized. The majority of the market, of course, players like all of us are doing what we can do, but to cater to this growing consumption market, consumption, and also the buying purchasing power, the price of purchase, are you seeing any kind of trends in terms of infrastructure cost going also higher from a mechanization point of view, or is it still stable, which will probably help the sector in that way?
From our kind of supply, not really. It really is a matter of how much you want to produce and level of automation. It doesn't change. But once a company, and thankfully all of them are my customers, once each of them decide that this is what they want to do, there are a lot of ways we can support them in, I wouldn't say minimizing cost, but in optimizing cost of investment, right? And going back to one of the earlier points of sustainability, now there is technology, not just on the tech side, which gives real-time information, which is a long explanation, but can relate to more margins, because you get real-time information, not post-mortem end of the day, where you can make changes in the process to actually make the deal difference. The machine is not going to do it for you. The information can help the supervisor make that change. So that's globally an area where companies like us are investing a lot. And two is, saving of water. Like, for example, transporting of offals. Today, we are able to do it with vacuum. And that is a considerable amount of saving of water. So on sustainability is one, availability, cost. So there is a lot of technology that is happening. But it's purely to do with what is it that, in my case, what our customer wants from the processing plant.
Great. So I think it's just the last question, and then we'll sum it all and open the floor for questions. Some of the top 3 things which you think the government should participate and support the sector to get better yields, to improve farmer incomes, to improve more food security, overall, whichever area you think is important. I hear, insurance being one very critical piece. Anything else you guys can think of would be good.
One thing which strikes my mind is this is to the complete poultry sector. The feed, the ingredients of feed, is completely exposed to the market volatility for the last 2 years. You can take soya or maize for a second, completely exposed. So the government has to have certain mechanism developed, because this is to do with the farmers of poultry sector. So if they can either develop a supply chain mechanism at a prescribed cost, fixed cost to these people. These are the major ingredients in feed, maize and soya. Both are extremely volatile. Maize has got 2 crops in India and soya has got only 1 crop. So yeah, government is trying to do lift off the ban on imports and exports and controlling there, but not enough. As he said rightly that, with the economy of scale what Sneha and Suguna, our companies like Nandus have, we are able to do it, but it is affecting the individual farmer. 40% of the poultry meat industry is still in unorganized sector in India. So government should come forward and help them in supplying the ingredients for feed. That's my point.
Yeah, since I am, very heavily focused on direct-to-consumer retailing of meat, I think food safety is something that the government should really enforce. Okay, there is FSSAI, which is demanding companies to disclose, give more transparency to their consumers, etc. But I think a lot of these laws are on paper. It leaves a lot to be desired in terms of implementation, right? When that happens, the entire sector lifts up, right? That must happen. The Indian consumer deserves to eat better. No questions about that. And they're not paying anything less at all. Between the farmer and the end consumer, where is the money sitting, right? Just to give you an example, throughout the last 6 months as a producer, I lost on one hand. And as a retailer, I never reduced even 5 rupees from the cost of sale. My cost of sales at our retail outlets has absolutely been the same, right? Irrespective of the cost of production. More such incentives and steps to be taken by the government that encourages companies to go out and bring these traceability and transparency and food safety enabled quality produce to the end consumer, right? They don't deserve to be eating from the traditional meat markets, extremely unhygienic, right? A lot of people say, oh, that builds my immunity. That doesn't build immunity, right? It's just, long-term problems waiting to happen, right? So that's my big request. Food safety, traceability. All the companies in the supply chain have to be held accountable. If you have a processing plant, make sure that it is PCB certified. You just don't slaughter the chicken and let the water run out, right? Somebody is taking offal somewhere else and feeding it to pigs. That is unacceptable, right? That's where I feel the government has to step in to ensure that the Indian population eats well and healthy.
Absolutely, I second you on that.
Okay, so I think anybody else, or okay, we'll wrap the session. What are we waiting for? We need to really get into the whole ship and move fast. Whatever we need to do now, and I think there is the onus of private players, but government needs to also come in and really help the sector. Any questions anybody has?
Hello. Sneha Group is right now, you are coming with company-owned stores, and Nandus, you are also having your own.
I can't hear you.
You come up with your own retail stores right now from last few years. So what business growth you see transforming your business into a new generation, kind of retail, coming up with retail stores?
Well, building a brand is a very expensive and a painful proposition. Okay, I want to underline painful. Okay, it takes patience, it takes money, perseverance, and commitment. But at the end of the day, it'll pay off. In our own experience, instead of putting 2 more breeding farms, I think I made the right investment putting 20 or 50 more outlets, right? A good balance of both is required, and I feel that's the future. And in terms of growth, we have doubled our revenues every year since we started, right? We have invested. We have made, I wouldn't say we have lost a lot of money. We have invested in building the brand. So today, hands off, the business runs. We deliver revenues every month, and that's what happens when you make that investment. So we are happy having chosen this path.
As a retail outlet about 40 years ago. So we are one of the very few Indian poultry companies who started from the retail side of the business. So today we still operate about 130 stores of our own, which are owned and run by the company. And we have a dealer network of about 2,500 stores, which sell exclusively Sneha chicken. So it is definitely a pain in the ass, but I'm sorry for using that word. But for us, if you see the whole production, almost 40% of our produce we are selling through our own channels. And that's why we are able to be profitable compared to other players in the industry. And that ratio is very important. We can't completely eliminate the middleman because that's the larger chunk of the business. But when you have a certain amount of whatever production you have, if a significant pie of it is through your own channels, you can get better margins. And I urge all poultry companies to invest some money. Definitely on the farming side, because the volumes are larger, you make more money whenever it's profitable. But on the retail side, though it takes a lot of time to build that volumes, and you will never be able to match the production side of it, but at least a certain percentage of your production should be through your own retail and your wholesale channels. And that's very important for the future of the industry. Or else the traders will take advantage of the poultry companies because they know this is livestock, it is perishable. We are desperate to sell. When the prices are coming down, everyone is offering. Now suppose Suguna offers 100 rupees, there's another company that comes up with 98 and I'll have to offer 96. There's no option in that. So it's important to build your own brand, and it pays off in the long term.
And what about, you're also in frozen chicken and...
Yes, so with frozen chicken, so if you take the whole Indian poultry scenario, about 92% of it is live bird still. Only 8% is processed, which includes both chilled and frozen. There is growth in that industry, but parallelly, live bird market is also growing. If you see the whole poultry industry, it's growing at 8 to 10%. So there is space for both the products, and we are concentrating on live bird sales also through our own retail channel, and parallelly we intend to build new brands for the value added chicken, where we will produce and sell chicken nuggets, burger patties, and chicken biryani, eat and eat biryanis, and sausages, salamis, sheikh kebabs. So that is the future for us. But we will not stop selling live birds in our stores because it's a cultural habit that people still want. So we will tweak it. It's not going to be that old traditional way of slaughter. That is getting better, but there is space for all kinds of products right now in the market. We can't say that one is better than the other, but we have to take care of what the customer needs.
Namaste Andy. I am GM Industries, Adilabad నుంచి వచ్చాను నేను. యాక్చువల్గా రూరల్ ఎంప్లాయ్మెంట్కి ఇది చాలా మంచి ఆపర్చునిటీ. యాక్చువల్గా పోల్ట్రీ ఫామ్, అందులో భాగంగా మీరు ఏమన్నా రూరల్ యూత్కి ట్రైనింగ్స్ కానీ అట్లా ఇస్తారా? సుగుణ, స్నేహ అండ్ వెంకీస్.
సో మంది యువత రూరల్గా ఉన్న వాళ్ళు చాలామంది పోల్ట్రీకి రిలేటెడ్ ఉండాల్సిందే, ఎందుకంటే ఆపర్చునిటీస్ చాలా లిమిటెడ్ ఉన్నాయి. అండ్ మీరు రెగ్యులర్ పంటల మీద నమ్ముకొని ఉంటే, ఇప్పుడు మనం లాస్ట్ 1 వీక్లో చూస్తే వర్షాలు పడ్డాయి, పంట చేతికొచ్చే టైంకి మొత్తం రాలిపోయినాయి. కానీ పోల్ట్రీలో అలా లేదు. ఇప్పుడు కాంట్రాక్ట్ గ్రోయింగ్ మోడల్లో మా ఎవరితో అసోసియేట్ అయినా దొంగతనం చేయకుండా నీతిగా పనిచేసి కరెక్ట్ మనం ఇచ్చిన దానా కోళ్ళకేసి కరెక్ట్గా హార్వెస్ట్ చేయగలిగితే వాళ్ళకి 8 నుంచి 10 రూపాయలు కిలోకి వస్తున్నాయి. అండ్ డెఫినెట్గా యూత్కి అదొక మంచి ఆపర్చునిటీ. అండ్ ఫ్యూచర్లో కూడా సైజ్ పెరుగుతుంది కాబట్టి ఇంకా ఇన్కమ్స్ పెరుగుతాయి. అండ్ ఇప్పుడు చాలా గవర్నమెంట్ స్కీమ్స్ కూడా ఉన్నాయి. దళిత బంధు స్కీమ్తో ఇప్పుడు పోల్ట్రీ ఫార్మ్స్ కడుతున్నారు. సో అందులో కూడా ఇంటిగ్రేషన్కి షెడ్స్ తయారవుతున్నాయి. సో డెఫినెట్లీ ఆపర్చునిటీ అయితే ఉంది.
అంటే ప్రాజెక్ట్ కాస్ట్ 20 lakhs అండ్ సబ్సిడీ 35%, లిమిటెడ్ టు 7 lakhs. దానికోసం నేను అక్కడ బాగా ఎంకరేజ్ చేస్తూ ఉన్నాను అన్ఎంప్లాయిడ్ యూత్ని ఆదిలాబాద్లో. మీరేమన్నా సపోర్ట్ చేస్తా అంటే అక్కడ నేను ఒకటి అవేర్నెస్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ పెట్టగలుగుతాను అన్ఎంప్లాయిడ్ యూత్కి, ఆర్ ఎస్హెచ్జి ఉమెన్, ఆర్ మెప్మా ఉమెన్.
డెఫినెట్లీ మా లోకల్ బ్రాంచెస్కి మేము ఇన్ఫామ్ చేస్తాం. డెఫినెట్లీ ఆఫ్టర్ దిస్ కాన్ఫరెన్స్ విల్ గెట్ ఇన్ టచ్. అక్కడ లోకల్ మేనేజర్తో ఇంటరాక్షన్ మనం అరేంజ్ చేద్దాం.
థ్యాంక్ యూ. నైస్.
I'm into export consultancy. I would like to just know from all the industry heads, what is that we can do in terms of increasing our exports? We have come a long way in terms of the industry, and you are almost the brand leaders in this particular segment. And I see, if you look at as poultry, we still are not in the international arena. So what is that you feel that we are lacking so that we can take it to the global markets? That's it.
There are a lot of long way to go to for India to become a major poultry export player. I'll tell you 3 basic reasons here. The consumption of poultry meat in India is growing by hips and booms. Let's say about 9.5% CAGR or for the last 5 years, and it is expected to grow at 11% CAGR in the next 5 years. There are a lot of infrastructural lapses in India. So we have to first of all cover that before we actually start hitting the export market. That is the first reason. Second reason is, being India as a growing economy and the per capita incomes are still growing, and being an young population of 60% of population is less than 30 years. The consumption of chicken is faster because poultry meat is the cheapest protein source in comparison to the other meats. And in fact, if you look at the ratio of protein, it is cheaper than milk as a protein source, poultry meat. So it is growing. So first of all, we have to develop the infrastructure, back end, and support to the farmers in order to cater to the Indian demand first. Then we can look at the export markets. That's the first reason. Second reason is, export market today from a commercial angle is not as lucrative as Indian market. That is the second reason. There are multiple reasons for this. The second reason, one is Brazil is being the largest exporter of poultry meat, and their cost of export or their cost of production is much lower than comparative to India. So once we develop our efficiencies in back end in terms of production costs and so on and so forth, and once we cater to our own land first, then we can think of exports. Hope I have answered your question as of now.
Again, coming back to Brazil, we are more or less the same lines of Brazil in terms of overall country as a. But many of the products what we are throwing over here, like chicken paws or chicken feet, that's exported huge quantities to China and Vietnam and all other countries. But we are not addressing that thing. And also coming to the processing front, 10 years down the line, we never had this kind of processing structure in the country. But we have come a long way in terms of, if Sneha is referring to 12,000 per hour. So that's the kind of technology shift we have come. So why not we also address into this? Because that's one area where you're losing a product, that's useless, and we are throwing it off. So that's where we need to concentrate. Because if you look at Brazil, there are around 28 processing units which are only exporting chicken feet and chicken paw itself. So why not we have that kind of a system where we can focus? Because there is a huge market, and I am very sad to hear that you are bleeding as a company, selling than the market, what your cost of production. So it really pains.
So exports are still there. So right now even we export to China, but we sell only the feet. That's a very small product. But even otherwise, even when we get a lot of inquiries from a lot of countries, Egypt is one, Maldives is one, and the Middle East. So these are very suitable for us for exports. But what happens is when we try to get into that deal, there's a difference of about $300 per ton. So which translates to about 25 rupees a kilo, which cannot be matched by a producer. So if government comes up with some export-linked incentives, maybe we can bridge that gap. So that's one discussion that's going on with the government. But otherwise, because Brazil uses genetically modified seeds, here in India we are non-GMO, we can fetch some premium even in the international markets. But $300, even during our best price, is still a high gap to match. And I think we are working towards it. But definitely everyone will not be able to do it. You need to have good infrastructure. You need to properly do the zoning and all the government required permissions need to be taken. So it's going to be a limited business, but opportunity in India is much larger, and volatility is definitely there.
Yeah, thank you.
Just one on, sorry.
Yeah.
On the machinery, on the equipment, technology, we already have it. We've had it for many years. So we have a feed processing solution running in his plant. So it's there, the technology is there. So many years back, gizzard, for example, was a low value item. Today, automatically we're able to cut clean, and it has become, as I don't know the pricing, but I'm told the value of the gizzard is increasing.
Yes,
it's 100 rupees.
85.
Yeah. So technology is there, but yeah, how, and coming to Brazil, Thailand, these are two countries where a large part of what they produce, they export. And that is all, so Brazil does all over the world, whole chicken, whereas Thailand is doing something very specific for Japan in terms of the cut, weights, how long it is. So yes, we have the machines for it. If somebody is willing to invest, we're more than happy to supply.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, sir. I will take one last question, being mindful of time. Yeah, he's got. The panelists will be available. You can have a discussion later. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So there has been a talk about the pricing, and I think rightly even he mentioned the point that bleeding, okay, and operating at the cost of below the cost of production. And sir, you mentioned about that there is the way that we can overcome this is by influencing the demand side and the growth side, okay, the supply side. So with different segments, okay, we have ready to eat, okay, we have live bird, meat, okay, even Varun mentioned all of this is important. But in order to influence the demand side, okay, which would be probably most easiest one to capture, okay, in the coming time?
Well, influencing on the supply side, I think that's against the law. Okay, you'll have CCI on your tail, imposing some thousands of crores of penalty on the industry. I don't think that's the right way to go. But influencing on the demand side is the right way to go, right? So talk to your consumer. The benefits of consuming meat as a protein source, rapid and quick access to quality meat, your neighborhood meat stores. That's what we have seen. Right, in my own household, when we didn't have Nandus, we were producing a lot of chicken, but selling away the live birds. Okay, we were probably making chicken once a week. Now there's Nandus on the app. There's meat available. Zappfresh is there. Then there's Licious, Fresh to Home, and Swiggy, Dunzo, Zomato. Everybody's got meat on their platform. So now, for a household like mine, where we never cooked meat at home, we went from one time cooking to maybe 4 times cooking. Convenience. Simple. Reach out to your consumer, talk to your consumer. That's the right way to build demand. Okay, influence the demand. Don't influence the supply. I don't think anybody should be influencing the supply. I think that's criminal, right? So yeah, that's my take on it.
Thank you so much, sir. And that was very insightful. I think the first session was really insightful. Why don't we give a round of applause? Okay. So we spoke about, there was very clearly the word which has come out, poultry business is all about entrepreneurship. So your answer solves that. In fact, Varun has very rightly mentioned that when I was talking to a couple of farmers, they were mentioning because of this climate change, they're not sure about their agriculture income, but they're very sure about their backyard poultry or their chicken business. So these are the words from the ground which were coming out. So we spoke about livestock, creating incomes, doubling the farmers' income. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.